Hey, what's up y'all, Q here. Today I'm joining my two good friends Bestiarii and Smoof and Besti. As the title says, we'll be ranking every episode of Danny Phantom, but we'll be ranking them within each season. Just a very quick disclaimer though, we have our own separate list, but this video will be a combined ranking that the three of us agreed on, and it's our personal opinion. If there's an episode you personally think was too high or too low, please let us know down below in the comments. I'd really love to hear them. This is a massive project for us and I hope you all really enjoy it. With all that being said, let's get to it!
So to start off the list at number 20, Mystery Meat. When one of Danny's best friends, Sam Manson, convinces the school cafeteria to change the menu to an all-recyclo vegetarian diet, the ghostly lunch lady goes on a rampage for revenge on Sam Manson for changing the menu on her. This episode is terrible, just like high school lunches and TV shows. While I got a chuckle out of the students being served actual grass and dirt that they dug up outside, I don't think that the ghostly lunch lady was a good choice for a first episode villain. I mean, imagine being served such garbage lunch that it actually raised the dead in protest. This episode took a lot of inspiration from comic books, especially with the way they set up the action shots and the set pieces, but unfortunately, they did not feel inspired enough by the comics to extend over to their characters. What I mean is, while some characters like Sam and Jazz, for better or worse, got a lot to show in this one episode, other major characters like Tucker, despite being Danny's other best friend, or even this episode's villain, did not have enough to be desired. Overall, just like the conflict between Sam and Tucker over their desired food groups, this episode is at best left to be forgotten about. Coming up next at number 19, we have Lucky in Love. Paulina witnesses Danny's ghost transformation, but swears to keep his secret while also becoming his girlfriend. Sounds like a pretty sweet deal for Danny, right? The only caveat is that not too much later, as Danny found out that Kitty overshadowed Paulina beforehand, and decided to get with Danny just to get Johnny 13 jealous. Kitty, I'm gonna have to be real with you for a moment. If your mans has the Fenton portable portal on hand, and you have to bug him constantly to have him take you to the human realm, but all you see is him flirting with every human girl like he's on The Bachelor, get out of there. Abort relationship immediately. Kitty is clearly better off without Johnny 13, as shown in this episode. Not only has she done her homework on Danny and his love life,
you like her, don't you?
Sam?
But she also manages to play close to the vest, threatening to expose his secret just to keep him playing along to her little game. I would have loved to see this episode end with her cutting ties with Johnny 13 for good, and for her to do her own thing as a ghost villain. But yet, status quo once again demands that she gets back together with Johnny 13. So the episode ends on a bitter note with Johnny 13 and Kitty getting into an argument, a ghost zone. Here we are at number 18, Parental Bonding. Danny fumbles the bag on asking Paulina out to the dance, resulting in him losing his pants. And in a surprise twist of event, much to Sam's resentment, Paulina agrees to his proposal after he presents to her the amulet. But there's a catch, as always. The amulet he presents to Paulina is actually a medallion that turns the wearer into a dragon when it senses hostility from the wearer. Also, Danny learns how to overshadow people, and uses it to control his dad during a parent-teacher conference, which leads to him chaperoning the school dance. So now Danny has to juggle between being in two places at once, while also trying to deal with the situation with the ghost dragon. In this episode, we are introduced to Casper High's Queen Bee, Paulina. I swear to God, the team was on a deadline because they tried to fit 4 different plot threads into one episode, but like pulling the wrong piece in Jenga, this episode falls apart on itself since there was nothing to hold it down together. But hey, on the bright side, for all you Sam and Danny shippers, they saved just enough screen time for them to have a slow dance. Kudos for getting your priorities straight, I guess, team. Kudos to you. And at number 17, we have 13. Jack showcases why we need two-factor authentication by releasing the ghosts of Amity Park thanks to the new fingerprint locking system that he abuses in front of his family. So while everybody's lining up for a free ride through the Fenton Express, Johnny 13 and Kitty attempt to cut in line, like it's pizza day in high school. Unfortunately, the portal pulls a Norton antivirus check on Kitty and traps her in limbo between Earth and the Ghost Zone. So after pulling off a sick Akira reference, Johnny is instructed by Kitty to find any human girl and get her to wear her outfit so she can snatch her body for herself. Talk about Freaky Friday. And as soon as Johnny Ubers himself out of the Ghost Zone, he runs into who else but Jazz, Danny's sister. So we got a Jazz-focused episode. And it sucks! And here's why! Jazz throughout the series is known to be smart, sophisticated, and compassionate, to a fault of course. So in this episode, we see absolutely none of that. Instead, we see Jazz get stripped of everything that makes her, and replaced with a typical teen love-struck by a bad boy biker who her parents don't approve of. And speaking of bad, Johnny 13 just may be the most horrible antagonist this series has ever created. Outside of his sentient shadow that he sends out to fight his battles, only for him to watch as Danny folds his shadow like clean laundry in front of him, Johnny 13 has nothing really going for him compared to Ghost Zone's finest losers like the Box Ghost or Poindexter. And you better enjoy this wholesome relationship between him and Kitty, because this is just about as much as you're gonna get, because they toss it out the window after this episode. Here we are at number 16, Splitting Images. Casper High, like many other high schools, has a terrible bullying issue, but when Danny decides to use his ghost powers to get back at Dash for all the bullying he suffered, the ghost of Sidney Poindexter breaks free from his ghostly prison, and upon discovering that Danny is half ghost, using his powers for evil, decides to overshadow Danny and force him to swap places with Poindexter. Not only did he forcibly clock Danny out of his own body, but this dweeb saw the opportunity to gain popularity by using Danny's body. I respect the hustle, but no amount of egg creams are gonna earn you my full respect, because homie was out there using Danny's powers to be brown-nosing the same bullies you should be going after. Talk about pot calling the kettle black. The only saving grace for this episode was the ending, where Danny, while in Poindexter's body, proceeded to run the fade on the dweeb inhabiting the body of the Haffa. Poindexter right now be looking like Captain Ginyu getting clapped up by Krillin and Gohan. However, his street cred was earned with his peers by complete accident. Pour one out for the nerds. You probably have heard at one point or another this message: with great power comes great responsibility. And this episode really pushes on that message. While I do love seeing Danny get what's coming to him, my main problem with this episode, and the message that it's trying to push, comes in the form of his antagonist Poindexter himself. Overall, this episode makes me want to go up to the writing team and give them all a wedgie and throw them into a locker, because there is nothing more humiliating than watching Danny get completely disrespected by a complete nerd. I never thought I'd ever see Danny's street cred crumble to the ground before my eyes, until I saw this episode. And at number 15 we have Prisoners of Love. Danny accidentally knocks Jack's anniversary gift from Maddie into the Ghost Zone. But after previously have been warned by Ghost Warden himself, Walker, Danny dives back into the ghostly dimension, where he, once again, so happens to get caught by Walker's police force, and thrown into prison with every ghost he's ever sent back to the Ghost Zone. Talk about an awkward reunion. Coming up next on Ghost Cops, we have a prison break at Sector 7. Ghost Boy Danny Phantom has organized a prison riot with Skulker and several other ghost criminals. We can't hold them off for long and we'll need backup on the double. Officer down! Officer down!
I'm fighting for my life!
But first, a word from our sponsors down in Arkansas. Have you ever found yourself in a situation like Jack, where you hyperfixate on your interest that it so happens to overshadow the ones you love? Well, do we have the answer for you? Take a trip down to Arkansas. where the rhubarb is great to whiz on and the backwater redneck humor is a great reminder on why it is you should always make things right with your lover. Now back to the A-plot. And it's already over. Would you look at that? This is what happens when you have two major plot threads trying to compete for relevancy while using the one item, which so happens to be Jack and Maddie's anniversary gift, as a means to tie everything back together with a bow. Ugh. This episode gets off with a warrant for this low of a placement.
Number 14, Control Freaks. Circus Gothica has come to Amity Park, and with a ringmaster like Freak Show, trouble has once again brewed. Sam has been excited to hear about this new circus coming to town that brings out all the goths of Amity Park, only to find out that Freak Show is not who he seems to be. With everyone's parents being on edge and how they think this man is evil, Freak Show invites them all to a show.
I invite you to attend a free performance for parents, police, and concerned authority figures. See the show and see for yourselves that we're harmless entertainment.
Only then are the parents tricked and are trapped in the tent. We also find out that Freak Show has been controlling ghosts with his staff, and yes, that does mean half ghosts are affected too. Sam must find a way to release her friend's mind control and bring him back to reality before he makes an even bigger target on himself. I do want to add one thing though. Remember how Mr. Lancer got forced into a janitor's closet? Yeah, whatever happened to him?
Let me out!
Overall, Freak Show is an alright villain. Not really all that scary. Mainly the ones who Freak Show controlled were more of a villain than he was. Yes, he was manipulative as all heck, but still not really one of the stronger villains, just saying. So I'm sorry to all the Freak Show fans out there, but this villain was a bit of a dud. Number 13, Fright Night. Danny and Dash are recruited by Lancer to do a haunted house competition, and whoever wins doesn't get detention. After thinking Danny has a competition in the bag, he decides to check on Dash's progress, only to find out that Dash seems to have a bit of a better chance at winning. So Sam gives him the idea of going into the ghost zone to borrow the sword that was used by the Fright Knight. After bringing the sword back to the human realm, little did Danny realize that the Fright Knight had been following him to recover the blade. After a curse had been placed on Amity Park due to Danny piercing the blade into the ground, Danny now has to find a way to end the curse, and the only way to end it is by placing the sword into a pumpkin, sending the Fright Knight back into the ghost realm. Overall, I think for a Halloween episode it was okay, but they definitely could have utilized the Fright Knight more in this episode. It seemed that the main focus was more on Dash and Danny having a contest instead of, the Halloween aspect of there being a haunted ghost night. He should have appeared much faster after the sword was taken away, instead of making him show up literally towards the end of the episode. I mean, you literally have a sword that causes people to experience their worst nightmares when struck by the dang thing. Number 12, What You Want. During the times Tucker and Danny are hanging out, ghosts keep attacking Amity Park. So while Danny goes off to stop them, Tucker gets left out on the sidelines. After one too many ghost attacks during their trip to the movies, Tucker gets stuck missing out on his movie due to it being sold out. He starts complaining and wishes that he had ghost powers like Danny. We get introduced to a ghost genie named Desiree, as she grants Tucker's wish by giving him ghost powers. Danny finds out about this during a scene of him trying to help a car that has suddenly started flying. Tucker flies past him showing that he has ghost powers, and it baffles Danny. Later on, we see that Tucker is starting to change a bit by using his powers to pull pranks on everyone, including Danny, by possessing over Paulina, forcing the two to have an all-out argument.
It was our first argument, and we were having it over a girl. Well, in one, actually.
Tucker continues to cause problems by pulling these stunts, and it eventually leads to him changing his grades in the school records room. Danny confronts him about it, and that leads to Tucker becoming even more upset as he starts changing into a monster. But thanks to Jack Fenton's ghost catcher, Tucker is relieved of his evil side and returned back to normal. Overall, the episode was okay at best. I did like some of the parts to it, especially the car flying scene. But seeing how I'm not really a huge fan of Desiree, it just didn't really pique my interest. Hence why it's a bit on the low side of this ranking. Yes, I like the idea of there being a magical genie that grants any wish, but I think they could have written her a bit better in this episode. Number 11, Teacher of the Year. Due to a lack of sleep and obsessing over a game, Danny has caused trouble on himself by failing a test that is counted towards 1/4 of his final grade. Mr. Lancer sees that Danny has the ability to pass, so he gives him an opportunity to retake the test. Instead of studying for the test, Danny continues to goof off and play games. Mr. Lancer catches him and gives him more of a lecture and brings him home, explaining to him that now he has gotten his parents involved. Wait! After being grounded from all electronics and his phone being destroyed, Danny must now focus his time in Mr. Lancer's classroom at their school, while Technus continues to progress through the game, growing more powerful with each key and enemy he defeats. Danny checks in on the progress of Sam and Tucker, but when he is caught by Mr. Lancer, he is given a choice to either focus on passing his test or tossing it away and failing his class. Overall, I thought the episode was really good. I did like the fact that they brought Technus back into the series, and we have Danny to thank for that since he turned into a bit of a salty player and chucked his gaming helmet at the ghost portal, which in return released Technus. But I think one of the points to this episode is that don't let video games control your life, because you're not going to get very far unless you learn the basics to everything in life.
Taking up my valuable time. There are no cheat codes in school, Danny, or in life. But if you don't care, why should I?
You can choose your own destiny, but make sure you choose it wisely, because sometimes life doesn't give you a second chance. Number 10. Life Lessons. Danny and Valerie were forced to take care of a sack of flour as part of a life science class project. But things take a turn for the worse when Skulker comes into the picture, pinning the two together to see who's the better prey. When things don't go his way, he kidnaps the two in handcuffs and brings them into the ghost zone. All while this is happening, Tucker has been conning the other kids into having him watch over the sacks of flour for a price. Now my question is, how did these kids have that much money? I mean, who paid Tucker $100 to watch a flour sack? Due to becoming a flower-powered daycare, Tucker has begun to neglect his and Sam's flour sack and forgetting the lesson to the whole project.
I keep having this nagging feeling that I've forgotten something.
Hey, if you forgot it, it probably wasn't all that important.
Yeah, I guess.
So Sam steps in and decides to start taking care of it. And for someone who said that the project is stupid, she seems to become very attached to it, and she actually named it Lilith. After Tucker starts freaking out for leaving the other babies, he runs off, but not before stealing Sam's first kiss by complete accident. Due to Tucker choosing money over parenting, he rushes home and finds that his mother just made cookies. After taking a bite, his mother thanks him for bringing home all that flour, which in return sends Tucker into a state of shock, realizing that he just caused everyone to fail their science project.
Fenton, Gray, your flour sack is a disgrace. But seeing as it's not part of a cookie, I'm giving you a C. As for you, Mr. Daycare...
Overall, really funny episode, especially when Skulker is antagonizing Danny and Valerie. One of the scenes I enjoyed was when Skulker framed Danny.
What are you doing?
Framing you?
Skulker, no!
Some slow spots at times, but once the fighting began between Danny and Valerie, that's where everything started getting good. Especially when it showed both of them in the ghost zone working together to escape Skulker. Number 9. $1 Million Ghost. After Vlad's ghost portal is destroyed due to him not changing the ectofiltrator, he decides to form a plan to steal Jack Benton's ghost portal. And the way he does that is by putting $1 million bounty on Danny, the legendary ghost boy. Danny, Sam, and Tucker head over to the Nasty Burger to investigate how the meeting turns out with the other ghost hunters. We get introduced to some of the weirdest ghost hunters. We got the guys in white, who are like the Men in Black. There's the groovy gang and Scaredy Cat, being like Scooby-Doo. And last but not least, we got extreme ghost breakers. I guess they were trying to be like the Ghostbusters. When Jack and Maddie arrive at the scene, Jack announces himself as Danny's father and will be the one to capture the ghost boy. After failing to capture the 3 ghost birds, Danny is embarrassed by Jack's attempt, which leads him to becoming the laughingstock of Amity Park. Sometime later, Danny devises a plan to reinvigorate Jack's passion for ghost hunting by having him capture Amity Park's public ghost enemy number 1. After Danny gets captured and Jack brings him to the meeting spot, both Jack and Danny get captured in a trap formed and devised by none other than Plasmius himself, or as what Jack calls him,
The Wisconsin Ghost!
After freeing themselves from the cage due to an agreement, Jack and Danny fly to Fenton Works to stop Plasmius of his evil deeds of stealing the ghost portal. Overall, I like that we get introduced to some new characters, but I think they could have used them more in the future. Furthermore, I think the guys in white are just an okay group. Yeah, they're funny at times, but just a plain annoyance in most parts. What really impressed me was that during the scene where Jack and Danny encounter Plasmius at Fenworks, Jack looked like he was about to be beaten by Vlad.
I'm about to end this man's whole career.
But he makes a huge comeback with the Fenton gloves and takes down Plasmius, all while cleaning up the lab at the same time.
It's not possible. You're an idiot. An idiot!
Maybe so, but I'm the idiot to beat you.
Number 8. Shades of Grey. After a bizarre incident at Axiom Labs involving our ghost dog and Danny, Valerie's life has taken a severe nosedive for the worst. After finding out that her dad has to take a severe pay cut just to be able to keep his job, she starts feeling the weight of the entire world on her shoulders. While in her lowest state of her life, Tucker decides to try to make moves in on her and blows a bit of Danny's cover by telling her that Danny's family are ghost hunters.
Seriously, did you know Danny's parents are professional ghost hunters?
No, I didn't know that. Hey, Tucker! Do you want to carry my books for me?
All while this is happening, Danny has to train Cujo to behave like a proper dog, only to find out that it's already been trained. Turns out Cujo was actually a guard dog for Axiom Labs. He wasn't there to cause chaos. It seemed like he was looking for something. All while this has been happening, Valerie has been receiving mysterious packages in the mail. Turns out the sender is later to be revealed as Plasmius himself. Vlad seems to be the key reason why Valerie has her new gizmos and gadgets, and looks to be setting up an arc for Valerie to play in. Overall, I liked how Valerie got properly introduced into the series. However, the trope of this dog continuously causing chaos came off more mundane than funny, and really overstayed its welcome after the first time it happened. Valerie becoming the ghost hunter was what really carried this episode to where it is, but it wasn't long enough to carry it any higher with a lackluster setup. Definitely am looking forward to seeing her in the future though, for sure. Number 7. Attack of the Killer Garage Sale. Danny finds himself in the in crowd after Dash gives him an invitation to his house party. The sudden popularity causes him to ignore his friends in favor of the popular kids. Meanwhile, the lab equipment Danny sold out to pay for his outfit for the party gets possessed by Technisk from a fight earlier that day. When Danny arrives to the party, he not only becomes an immediate outcast from the sudden theme change.
You see, after buying that computer stuff, I didn't have enough money to buy the sweatsuit, so I changed the dress code to loser chic.
What the fuck? But he also sees Technisk begin to gather all the other lab equipment and transforms into a giant mechanical form. With the help of Sam and Tucker, Danny is able to capture Technisk, stop his rampage, and reconcile with his friends. Overall, I thought the episode was pretty good. One of my favorite ghosts makes an appearance. But the whole part with Danny ditching his friends for the cool kids, not cool. But I am glad that after getting his butt handed to him by Technisk, he finally comes out to realize that he needs his friends.
Number 6. Fanning the Flames. A new popular singer named Amber McLean starts enchanting teens with her hypnotic song. When Danny challenges her, he ends up being hypnotized by a love song. Because of this, Danny becomes distracted by Sam and can't focus on stopping Ember. So it's up to Sam to break Danny's heart and get him to stop Ember from hypnotizing the entire world. Okay, so I'm just going to start off by saying Amber McLean is such a staple classic villain for this series. Just for her first episode, I could say she absolutely killed it. Though between Danny and Sam's romance starting here and the slower pacing after Danny gets hypnotized up to the climax, I personally can't put this episode in the top 5 of the season. Also, that theme song that she sings is just downright fire. Here, just listen to it. Let this set the tone for how amazing these next 5 episodes are going to be. Number 5, My Brother's Keeper. Miss Penelope Spectra, the new school counselor, is actually a ghost who feeds off of the insecurities and misery of Casper-sized students to remain young. Jazz notices Danny's different personality change and tries to help by setting Danny up with Miss Spectra. However, when Danny tries to lose Jazz for butting in too much into his life, she accidentally witnesses Danny transform into a ghost. Danny must stop Spectra from engulfing the school with misery, all while trying to overcome his own insecurities as a half-ghost and struggling teen. Okay, so I'm gonna start off by saying Miss Penelope Spectra is a bad bitch who doesn't give a f on what she has to do or who she has to hurt to get what she wants.
And that last domino falls and the sparklers vaporize the speaker. We'll leave you here to take the blame. And by the time I'm done with you, you'll be sure it was all your fault.
She's heartless, cunning, cold, and just flat out manipulative. I'm still geeking out about it. On top of a great villain, we get a great Jazz episode considering most other episodes focus on her are mid. Seeing her trying to connect more with Danny is heartwarming. She finds out Danny is a ghost so early on in the series, and her being the one to actually beat Spectra is the perfect ending to the episode. If you haven't seen it, definitely check this one out. I cannot recommend this episode enough. Number 4, Bitter Reunions. Jack decides to bring the entire family to Wisconsin for a college reunion hosted by his old college friend, Vlad Masters. However, things take a turn for the worse when Vlad reveals himself to Danny as a half-ghost bent on seeking revenge on Jack for an accident with the prototype ghost portal back in their college days. The outcome from this was it costing him the love of his life when he was struck with ectoacne, but only to later grant him ghost powers from this. Now that he also knows that Danny's half-ghost as well, the situation becomes a dire battle of wits to save the now-possessed Jack Fenton and defeat Plasmius. For Vlad's first introduction, I could say he left quite an impact, and it doesn't surprise me he quickly became a fan favorite from this episode alone. We've seen Danny at this point get cooked by the likes of Tectus and Skulker, but nowhere near to the extent that is Vlad. You'd think Vlad was Gordon Ramsay with how badly he cooked Danny in just this fight. With over 20 years of fighting experience, it's no wonder Danny held the fattest L in their first run-in. Though what confuses me is that Vlad didn't know Danny Phantom was Jack's son until now, yet everyone in the Ghost Zone knows about Danny being the half-ghost according to Poindexter?
What?
But I digress. Vlad is evil, manipulative, cunning, yet very blinded by his own short-sightedness and greed, i.e. Maddie, which he looks at her as more as property than as a person. So seeing Danny get into his head by forcing him into a truth was genuinely satisfying.
Using your opponent's weaknesses against him. I am teaching you something after all. Very well. Truce.
For a villain this smart to get bested like that is interesting and is the foundation to this rivalry. So a great episode to introduce one of the most iconic villains of the series, but that's just it. If Vlad wasn't in this episode would have landed somewhere in the middle of the list due to how run-of-the-mill it feels when he's not center focus. Number 3, One of a Kind. After a full night wasted capturing the box ghost, Danny tracks the Ghost Zone's greatest hunter, Skulker, who wants to capture Danny for his collection. The next day, Danny fails a biology test, so Sam suggests that he do a report on a purple-backed gorilla named Samson for extra credit. So Danny and his friends go to the zoo to do the report. However, after Danny and Tucker fall asleep, they are suddenly attacked by Skulker. Fortunately for them, they are saved by Samson. During school the next day, Danny's repeatedly attacked by Skulker until Danny begins to understand the pattern of the attacks. When he checks the schedule on Tucker's PDA to be certain, he sees clear as day, it lines up perfectly with the attacks. So now Danny has to multitask between not getting captured by Skulker while also trying to get the report done on Samson. For an introduction to one of the biggest mainstay villains, Skulker, I thought it was actually a great way to show off his character. The balance on comedy and action this episode had was very grounded, yet nothing truly overstays its welcome either. Samson was out here running the meanest fade on Skulker, hitting this man with straight up DK combos, and the ending, oh boy the ending. Finding out Samson was actually a female is very jarring and something I was actually not expecting either. Also, this is just personally me, but as much as I love Kevin Michael Richardson, I greatly prefer his old voice, Matthew St. Patrick, a lot more.
I am Skulker, a collector of things rare and unique, and you, Ghost Child, are that and more.
Number 2, Maternal Instincts. Maddie, wanting to bond with her son, takes Danny to a mother-son science convention from a mysterious letter that was sent from the Dalv group located in Florida. However, it's shown to be a ruse by Vlad to convince Danny and Maddie to stay with him permanently. Vlad also launches a ghost attack to eliminate Jack simultaneously. Meanwhile, at Fenton Works, Jack tries to connect with Jazz, who wants nothing to do with ghosts but turns out to be an amazing ghost hunter that helps Jack fend off the attack.
Back off, she's a minor!
There's just so much to love about this episode. Seeing Maddie as a main focus was definitely a great change of pace. Danny and Vlad's rivalry continues to be as entertaining as ever. Though, Danny sometimes comes off as much of an asshole as Vlad does, I swear.
Bye, Vlad!
And as a lonely single man in your 40s, might I suggest internet dating or a cat?
Maddie straight up winning a fight by herself, mind you, against 10 other ghosts was actually awesome. For the B plot, I gotta admit, it was just as engaging as the main plot with Jack and Jazz bonding, as well as seeing Jazz being an amazing ghost fighter. There wasn't a dull moment with this episode, and it's definitely worth checking out if you haven't seen it already.
Knockout!
Number 1. Public Enemies. Walker devises a plan to overrun Amity Park with an army to raise hell and force Danny out, so Danny has to come up with a plan of his own to overcome this overwhelming threat. However, he immediately befriends Wolf, another ghost that was under Walker's control. Walker and his goons begin to overshadow people until he overshadows the mayor to turn Danny Phantom into public enemy number 1.
And we've located the ghost responsible for all the terror inflicted on our town. This one.
With the help of Wolf, Danny is able to send Walker and his goons back to the Ghost Zone, however, not before the damage was done to Danny's reputation. For Walker's second appearance, I could definitely say it was a much stronger impact than his initial premiere. Walker has shown he's not a man to be trifled with whatsoever. This plan left such a mark for the rest of the series, I'm genuinely surprised that even in defeat, Walker still won overall. Wolf was such a mysterious character that even after this episode ends, we still know very little about him, except that he speaks Esperanto, can tear through a ghost shield with ease, and can cut through dimensions with his claws, which are all astonishing feats. Unfortunately, it's sad to think that we don't get to see him again all the way till season 3. Nothing short of a well-crafted episode with very high stakes. If you haven't seen it already, I very much so recommend it.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for the Season 1 closure. So, for Season 1, it was a bit of a shaky start with episodes like Mystery Meat and Parental Bonding, but it really started picking up and gained momentum towards the end. Very solid start to a series, all things considered. Let's see if they can maintain momentum with Season 2.